Today, we're going to talk about calendars. Now, most people will say, oh, okay, that should be interesting. And you might think it's not, but in reality, it is. It's a very interesting topic. And there is so much depth to calendars. So, but we're not going to, I can't focus on everything. We could be here for the rest of the day and talk about all the possibilities of using calendaring in SmartOffice. But again, we only have an hour, so I'm going to focus on creating activities or tasks in the calendar, the components inside the calendar, and some unique little things sometimes people aren't aware of, and probably give you a hint as to what's going to come further down the road in maybe doing some additional webinars, maybe pre-recorded based on using the calendar. First of all, it needs to be set up properly, but we're not going to do that today. One of the recordings I'm going to do is going to be directed toward the administrators and or individual users in an office, so you can get a feel of where you can go and set up the calendar to really work around the way that you work. Let me get rid of this. There, move that out of the way. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to actually start with creating a calendar event, get into the calendar, and then go through the various pieces that's inside a calendar task or a detail by itself. Now, a long time ago, I was watching, I think it was an old black and white movie, and they were talking to a guy about how to write a newspaper article. And he said in those, when you write a really good newspaper article, it has to answer at least 5, possibly 6 questions. They often call it the 5 W's and an H. And for an article, it's like the who, what, when, where, why, and oftentimes how. Well, the W's really apply to calendaring as well. You have to answer who, what, when, where, and why. And that important information helps you determine exactly what's going to be needed to be done. It keeps you on track, and it gives you an idea of what you're doing at that moment or any time during the day or the week or the month or the year. So let's start off with just entering a standard activity or an activity, or at least bring up the screens to do that. Now, there's several ways, and for those of you that are experienced in SmartOffice, I've said it before and I'll say it again, there's more than one way to do anything just about in SmartOffice, and calendaring is no different. You can go in and pull up a contact record of the person you want to do it for and start from there. You can jump right over to this, what we call the quick action corner, which by the way, you can customize. And I have 4 icons that get me into various pieces of my calendar. let me see if I can close this out. Hide the floating window. There, hide the floating window. You can come over here to what I like to call my, my quick input and click on the plus sign. And there I can get down into all of these different options that I have in here. And there's one for calendaring. So take your pick. However you find that works best for you, by all means do that. I'm going to go in and actually pull up a record. So I have 2 people named Twitter. John and Miriam Twitter, and we're going to go ahead and use good old John for this. Now, I can just check mark his name and go straight up here and begin it. Or if I want to, I can do that quick action. Again, what works best for you? But this is more really important about what is and what do I put inside a calendar. So I'm going to start from here. This is my week view calendar. I think this is my day view calendar. Here's creating a new task, which by the way, if I had a dime for every time someone said, well, I don't put my to-dos on the calendar, it's my to-do list. Your to-do list is your task piece of the calendar. So when you think your tasks are not a part of the calendar module, oh yeah, they are. So, and then you have creating a new activity. We're just going to go ahead and click on the new task. Anytime now. Here you'll notice that this is a very small little data entry screen, and this tells us the who, the what, the when, which is down here, and the why. The only thing it doesn't tell me is the where. Is this on the phone? Is it on a Zoom? Is this in person? And a call kind of gives it away that it's at least a phone call or maybe a Zoom call or something like that. So this is called your standard active or your standard input screen. And it's really nice if all you're doing is, oh, I have to call and confirm this, or I have to do that, or I have to do this. And sometimes it's just a little bit of data and nothing more. And this works really, really well. Now, this is my default input screen. You can change your default. You might be seeing not this screen at all based on your default. Now, if it's more involved, what you can do is you see, I can jump over to my comprehensive. And because some of my tasks or some of my activities might be very short, simple, and to the point, I will leave this as my default. If more often than not, I have much more detail involved, then I'll switch and I'll go to the comprehensive. But it's not a big deal. I just click comprehensive and it's going to open up that screen. So this is a screen I actually work with probably more than either one of them. And before we finish this, let's start talking about what we see here. You notice how it linked it to John because John's record is the one that I'm using. If you have linked together spouses or partners, it will show and display that here on this activity detail screen. If I click here, what's that going to do? It's going to make sure this particular activity / or task that I am creating will post not only to John's record, it will also post to Miriam's record as well. Now, underneath there, there's another hyperlink and it says additional contacts. So if there's anyone else that's involved in this call or appointment, whatever it might be, you can add them to the list as well. Now, I'm going to do John Atlaw. Why? He's their attorney. So maybe this phone call or maybe this appointment, whatever it is going to involve the three of them plus me. If you have grown children, oftentimes they're involved as their parents are getting older and they have grown up and become mature adults. They start getting together about looking at how your financial plans or all your policies or whatever. So now this is going to post on John's record, Miriam's record, and on John Atlaw's record as well. And when I mark it done, it will update it on their record as well. So now I've got a very clean audit trail or paper trail, if you will, of exactly what is going on with this particular item and who's all involved with it. And by the way, a lot of you use your activity log on the contact record, and it'll show you who the people were that it was for. In this case is John. There is a column that you can add to your display that shows all of the individuals or businesses that have had this particular task copied to. So you can take a look even on an individual contact records activity log if that particular one, this particular item, was actually copied and added to other people's records as well. Keep that in mind. A lot of people don't realize that. So that's one thing you should know. Now down here, my user preferences set. More often than not, when I am creating something on this calendar, when it's a task, it's for me to do. If I were doing an appointment, and more often than not, the appointments were for my advisor. Well, in my user preferences, I would say when it comes to those activities, those timed events, it really should go to the advisor of record because they're the one that usually does those particular kinds of tasks or activities. And by the way, definition of the difference between a task and an activity. One is timed, a 4 p.m., a 6 p.m., a 10:30, a noon, whatever. And the other one is not. It's just something that needs to be done on the date that it has been assigned. So keep that in mind. Now, if this activity was for someone, let's say, other than myself or other people in the office, and I'm not sure what their calendar looks like. By the way, I think this database only has one user, but I could always come up to the scheduling tab Yeah, so it is. It's only me. There's only me in this database. But if I had 4 or 5 or 6 other users in my office, and if they are making sure that their tasks or activities are on the calendar, especially these timed events, it would show their names and it would show whether or not that particular time I'm looking to use is scheduled or not. So you can always automatically check to find out what's available for other people in the office as well. So that's your scheduling tab. Then you have your documents tab. Oh, if you're not using this tab, you are missing the boat. Let me tell you. Do you ever have a call or an appointment? And during that call, you're referring certain information. It could be in-force ledgers. It could be brochures. It could be magazine articles or some other even electronic piece of data that you have. You can attach those documents right to this activity. Now, why is that such a big deal? I always say, think 5 years down the road. Think someone comes in, or your supervisor comes in, or whomever comes in and says, we got a problem. A few years ago, you talked to John Twitter about this product based on some information you had, and he bought that product, and now it has tanked, and he's filing a complaint. I could go to this specific calendaring event. I could take a look at this screen, see where I have attached an electronic copy of all of the information I used during this call, during this meeting, and I would be able to go back and pull that very easily because it's attached to this phone call or appointment itself. So that is not a tab to ignore. That is a tab to use. And if you're wondering, well, if I attach it here, is this the only place those documents will show up? As I'm going to have to find that calendar? No, it automatically not only will post it to the specific activity, it will also post it to the document log in their contact record. So it cross-references the information to all of the documentation you've ever attached to the record. And yet I can come down to this specific item and find those specific documents that were used. Oh, that's a really good screen. Years and years ago, I saw this really save an advisor's good intentions because that was exactly sort of the scenario that happened. And I told you the story pleasantly. It was not pleasantly said to the advisor. I happened to be at that office that day. Now we have a new tab on the block. It's called Custom. Oh my goodness gracious. You have an entire custom field screen for calendaring. I saw that and I thought, oh, wow. Then I thought, what am I going to use all these fields for? I haven't come up with anything yet. I haven't actually focused on this yet to come up with some examples, but oh, I'm going to use it. And I was so excited. And I thought, look at that. Oh, my yes, no's, my alpha. Oh my gosh. And then when I got to thinking about it, oh, does that mean, because I have custom fields, that I can do a custom page layout on the calendar so I can bring over those custom fields and see them when I'm working with them? And the answer is no. Oh, I was somewhat deflated to say the least, but let me tell you, they do work in reporting on calendars. They do report, I mean, they do work with creating filters on them. So even though I can't see them, and I'm just going to put in a comma yet, comma, because I have hope, the fact that now I can get a little bit more creative in using my calendar really, really sits very well with me. And here's why. So I'm going to veer off a little bit of actually creating this and tell you how important it is to understand the important depth inside your calendar. I know everyone wants things done fast. They want to be able to just say, phone call, 4:30, Wednesday, Tuesday, 9 p.m., da-da-da-da-da, and get it done, and it goes everywhere and it syncs, and that's all they need. Not really. You've got to think about, how does your activity help your business grow? How does your activity keep you on track for the type of goals that maybe you and or your supervisor have created for you as the year goes on? Very successful advisors, usually at the end of the current year or right after the first of the next year, they sit down and say, okay, what do we want to do this year? What are our goals this year? What are the demographics of the clients that we're selling to, or we think are the demographics of the clients we're selling to? And one huge way to be able to do that is by using your calendar appropriately. So in this particular one, and notice again, it's for John and Miriam, and I've got the attorney involved. I am the participant. I'm the only person in the database. And over here, we're going to talk about these pieces as I fill them out. So let's say that this is a client review. Focus. Oh, sorry, it has to be pretty. Focus on investments. What's nice is if you have standard subject matter that you do use a lot, you can create your drop-down choices here, assuming that user right is turned on for you. So you don't always have to type everything in. And the more standard your entries are, the easier it is to go in and pull information. Now, I have this down as a task, but it's not. Let's say it's an appointment. I simply remove that little checkbox, and now it allows me to skip from a task to an activity or back and forth. Now, when it's a task, by default, my preference is call, because more often than not, that's what my tasks are. When I switched it over and pulled away the task indicator and picked up the time element, it changed my default type to appointment. That's my default. Again, think about what is the most common things you do either for yourself or someone else in your office when you're creating calendar entries. So let's just move this out a couple of days so I don't get a conflict. We'll say next week, and we'll put it 8 to 8:30. All of these things here, like even the 30 minutes on an appointment, that is set up as a default. Now, I should really go ahead and change that, because who ever heard of an appointment only lasting 30 minutes, especially if it's with a client or a prospect? Nah, I'll set my defaults later to an hour and a half, things I can do. Now, here's where I want to talk about these fields, the type, the keywords, and the subtype. Inside of SmartOffice, you have hierarchies. The contact record, and I've done that on some other videos, where you shouldn't have so many. The type field in just about every module, that is the highest level in your hierarchy. Now, in the contact record, it's things like if they're a client or a prospect or a center of influence or whatever. You don't need 50 or 60 or 70 of them, because you're never going to be able to understand exactly what's going on in your database. Same thing with calendaring. Appointment, call, email, meeting, personal, project, to do. Those are great for high levels of hierarchy. So let's just say we're going to choose that this one is an appointment. Now I'm going to jump down to the subtype field. Here's where you can get a little bit more in depth. But again, don't go crazy. I personally think some of these are maybe too many in here. And you can go in and hide some of those that are established as a default listing. You can also create additional ones as well. But be really smart about this. So let's go back to the advisor. It's the first of the year. And if they've been around for a while, they understand that when they're looking at their goals for the upcoming year, it's oftentimes based on how much income or commission are they going to be earning that year, or that they need to earn in order to pay the bills, keep the lights on, pay the staff, etc., etc. So they set a goal. Okay, if let's say they want to make $500,000 in the current fiscal year. Now, they know in order to do that, you have to have a certain number of appointments in order to get that kind of revenue to generate. So that's where the type field comes in. We know we need, let's say they know they need 250 appointments for the year. Okay, that's great. Now we've got something to start tracking if we're online, to keep on track for our goals. Then you get to the subtype field. Well, if you think about it, all of the appointments that you have. So if I did nothing else, if I just put appointment and I hit 200 appointments for the year, and I've only made half of my commission goal, what's wrong? Well, then you need to take a little bit deeper look. What kind of appointments did you have? How many of the appointments that you had were actually a sale opportunity? Was it an initial? Was it a fact finder? Was it a delivery? Or was it service? Was it, I don't, all these different appointments. So you really need to say how productive were those appointments? And that's where the subtype field comes in. That's where you take a look at if you and this is actually a true story. Years ago when I was working for Prudential, once a year I did a one-on-one visit with our top of the table or our President's Club advisors. They got an individual visit, and we went through and we were doing the technology and the whole 9 yards. And this gentleman says to me, he goes, I don't get it. I have never been busier than I've been this year. I am seeing more people than the last 3 or 4 years combined, but my revenue has not gone up. So I talked him into tracking his calendaring options for 6 months, not just put in the appointment, but what kind of appointment were they? And then when I called him back 6 months later, that was the problem. Most of them were service oriented and not sales oriented. So he started delegating things to his staff to do, things of that nature, and that freed him up to take the kind of productive appointments he needed to get his goal tracking back on track, if you will. So when you're looking at a calendar, that's why there's more to it than just putting something that needs to be done or an appointment that needs to be had, etc. It's also about helping you maintain what is going on. So let's say that this is, I've got client reviews, so we'll put an annual review here as a subtype. Now, of course, those can be looked at as a possible sales potential anyhow. That's what reviews are for. Then we have the keywords. What I love about the keywords is this. So here again, we've got an advisor who's going to sell $500,000 in revenue or commission for the following year. He knows he needs a lot of appointments, and he has decided that based on his book of business, he foresees that most of his revenue would come from life insurance or annuities or investment accounts or retirement planning or whatever. This is where the keyword field can come in. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to put annual review, and I'm going to put insurance. Maybe they have mainly insurance type policies. What does this do as far as tracking where he is on achieving his goals? Well, I'll tell you again, true story. I have a lot of true stories. This was a relatively new advisor. I think he'd maybe been in there about a year or two. He had a nice young guy. He was like only in his early 30s. He got married a couple of years earlier, and now they were expecting their first child. And when he got into this business, because he knew the people he would be working with, where his sales demographic was. And in this case, we'll use insurance because that's what he was convinced about it. He was dedicated to making sure people had adequate insurance, etc. And as time went by during the year, and I think he and a supervisor got together once a quarter to review his goals and see where he was. Well, by the time, let's say the end of the year rolled around, he was in for a shock. He sold more, now long-term care was just becoming a big buzzword. He sold more long-term care than he did life insurance. He didn't realize that. His natural market evolved around long-term care. And I got to asking him next time I saw him, I said, so what did you find out when you went back and took a look? Well, his parents, so his grandparents were both in nursing facilities, and he saw what it did to his parents as far as being caretakers for his grandparents. And that's when he got to talking about people, and they asked him about his family, or he asked about their family, and one story led to another, and that became a natural market for him. So not only can it help you track the pace of your commission and your goals, it can also help you define where maybe you have a natural affinity rather than just, throwing whatever you throw against the wall, whatever sticks, and that's it. So there's really so much more to calendaring than just that. Now down here in the location, we're going to say it's going to be at the office. And by the way, if you don't know that, you've got over here a Google map. And if you have their address on file and their contact record, it'll kind of show you where their address is. So keep that in mind as well. Description. I'd be willing to bet that a large percentage of you on this call use this description and track every single thing that happens with John Twitter, not just this client review. I mean, well, yes, it's all due with the client review, but every call, every meeting you have, everything you do to follow up and get this and that, you do it here in the description. And that's okay. I've seen it. But I've also seen where it's very confusing, that something that was scheduled for June 28th is still on the books as active in August, September, or whatever, because they keep building from here. In reality, again, I'm not telling anyone you have to change, but in reality, this is really about what's going to happen on June 28th. So we're going to say, I'm going to put in here focus. I want you to watch something. See how I put that in there and it's on bold and I underscored? Did you ever do that? And then it doesn't look very bold. I mean, the underscore is there, but it doesn't look really, it doesn't pop when you actually save it. Now watch this. Now watch this. It went bold. There's a key to this. It took me forever to figure it out. If you're doing a bold and an underscore, and it's also in the SmartPad, at the end of that line, remove the bold. So take out the control B, take out the control U. It's the underline that kicks this in. Then just hit your space bar once. Now you get a true bold entry. Okay? So again, here in your calendar, and maybe other places too, but I know this in the SmartPad because I use it all the time. You do your control B, your control U to get the bold and the underscore, but before you leave that line, just get in the habit of doing it, hit your control B again, get rid of the bold. You can hit your control U again, get rid of the underscore, hit your space bar once, and you get your bold. Now, are you going to remember to do that? Probably not. And then you'll be down on the next line, you go, oh, I forgot to do that. Just put your cursor back up there and do it again. Get rid of the bold, get rid of the underline, hit your space bar, and now you've got this lovely little focus. So we're going to talk about some things that we know they want to do. International stocks, college funding for grandchildren, and retire by 60, not 30. Wouldn't that be nice? So here's what the June 28th meeting is all about. It says review, and we're focusing on investments, and these are the key elements. That's what June 28th is all about. Now you've got all the kinds of lovely little things you can do here. And so you've got what this is about. So we've got the who, we've got the what, we've got the when, we got the where, and we got the why. We've answered those 5 W's, and now I have a very nice in-depth entry on John Twitter and Miriam and their attorney. I forgot his first name. I think it's John Atlaw. All of the records will show exactly what this client review meeting on the 28th was all about. So that's what you're really supposed to have here. Now, just as some additional items to be aware of, every activity or task that you create has its own SmartPad. Anytime you see purple SmartPads, it means that's attached to that very specific item we have there. Now, and that's great. Again, if I had all these documents posted that I used in this appointment, and I have all of the notes that we discussed in this appointment on that purple SmartPad, and someone, I always use the 5-year rule. 5 years down the road, someone says, oh, he is not a happy person, and this is why. I can take a look and isolate what happened on this specific activity. But in addition to being here, that purple SmartPad, that will also then automatically populate to your master SmartPad at the contact record level or the business record level or whatever, which is your yellow SmartPad. So it just doesn't do it here. It also does it there. So I have the big picture of everything that happens with John, but I also have very specific pieces. So much easier to go back and piece what happened 5 years ago on an appointment in June of 2023, as long as I've got everything connected to it at that level. So keep that in mind as well. So just as a recap a little bit on this first part of the screen, here's the who's. Like I mentioned, all 3 of these individuals will have this posted to their record. Here's why we're going, and try and be, you don't have to get wordy. If you want to write the great American novel in your description, it's up to you. But just keep trying to remember, what questions could you answer 5 years from now by looking at the screen? And maybe you need much more than the little isolated items I have here. So all of this is here. Now, oftentimes you will, if you're on the screen, this section down here will be collapsed, but it provides you with a lot of data. If I come down here, and if in my defaults, I have a reminder like 30 minutes before the appointment or the call, and they got to be timed events, it shows me what it is. Otherwise, you can and that's where it feeds from your default. You can give it a priority, and all that does is if it's a high, I think it's somehow listed in red. I think there's just a red indicator on there, etc. I have never done call scripts. I hope to never have to do call scripts in my life. So I'm just going to ignore that one. If this appointment was about a specific policy, a specific investment account, and I think it also includes if they were in the opportunity module, you can click on this little link to item here, and it would show you what you have in SmartOffice. Here's your policies, here's your investments, and whichever one you select, and unfortunately you can only select one, it will take this activity and attach it to the activity log on that investment or on that policy. So this is, as many people as complain sometimes about our calendaring, it's very thorough. It doesn't do just this upfront stuff. It makes sure it reaches out and touches everything where it needs to go. And sooner or later, someone's going to be very grateful that it did, because someone's going to get one of those, oh my God, they are not happy type situations arise in your life. Now, the only downside of that is if you link it to someone, that policy number, whatever, it's going to replace your keyword. So that bothers me somewhat. But I'm beginning to think, now that I have these little custom fields, I just might use one of those to replace the keyword field so I can link safely, and yet I'll have a little field. No, it's not going to be on my screen. Not yet. Remember, I'm putting in the word yet. I'm hopeful, so that I can take the place of that and keep tracking those demographics of where did my market really go this year. This seems to be the one box most people hate. I love this box, especially for meetings, appointments, and phone calls. Because what this is going to do is this going to give me a pop-up when I mark it done saying, okay, what happened? You made that call, you had that appointment. So what was the result? And as much as people hate those screens popping up, I mean, my gosh, they're letting you tell SmartOffice what happened. And when we get to the comprehensive screen, you're going to go, these are my choices. But we'll talk more about that when we get there. More and more people are using the due date, even though this is scheduled for the 28th. They like having, especially if something's maybe pushed out their ways, they like saying, okay, I've got this client review on the 28th of June, but I'm going to give it a due date of X because this is when I need to have everything done. Now, that's not what it was originally used for, but it really, really works well for people. So they are taking advantage of assigning a due date in addition to when the actual task or activity is going to be done. The minutes spent, I don't know if any of you have ever used it before, that really ties in with, you've got a project as your type field, and you're tracking maybe billable time, or they're trying to find out how long these projects are taking. You get to go in and say, okay, I spent 20 minutes on this date, and then what percentage of that project has been completed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I've used it quite often with working with agents that do a lot of seminars or event planning, and they have all these things they do. They either are using the event module or not, but keeping, how they're progressing and getting everything ready for said event, that comes in very handy. This is just saying show it as busy, and this is where you can mark it done. Again, there are other places as well, but this is one area where you can say, okay, what is the status of this task? It's created by me, and it was created on this date and at this time. So I'm going to click Save and Close. Now, one of my defaults user preferences said, ask me about doing a confirmation letter. And if you've ever tried to pull one up and there is no confirmation letter, there are certain fields on a piece of correspondence on a template. I think it's the purpose field that if you put it as confirmation, it will show you all the confirmation letters with that keyword so that if you like to send them out, you can. And I'm just going to click no. Okay, so let's hop over to the calendar. Where is oh, wait a minute. No, it's for the 28th. I thought, where did it go? Panic City. Let's go. There it is. Okay, so I'm on my week view, and on the left-hand side are the timed events for those of you that are new, and on the right-hand side, those are the untimed. Those are the tasks that are actually part of your calendar, no matter how you may think otherwise. And here it is. Now, how do I mark this done? Well, yeah, I'm going to show you how it is. So I'm just going to, many people will open it up just because those boxes are really hard to get to work the way you want. I don't care what anybody says. Sometimes I click on the wrong thing. Now, there's another easy way, and I can just hear Zoe offline going, well, why don't you just right click on it, Liz, because there's your mark done button. And he's right. But I'm just saying, I'm acknowledging Zoe is right. He's always right. I just like having that screen open, maybe. But I'm going to go ahead and use Zoe's thing. I'm going to go mark done. This is your standard outcome screen. Some of you have probably never seen the screen. This screen has a huge impact if you're using the opportunity module, what I call the pipeline module. And what I love best about this? You can create your own outcomes. No contact made, you get different items. Contact made, it switches, and maybe it's not, some of them are going to overlap, but you can create your own. And there's in the pipeline, the opportunity module, that has a really big impact. I love it. So this is the standard. Again, if I say contact was made, then you can come through and you can select a specific item. And depending on what you select, it kind of has an impact on what it is you're going to do. So if I say schedule a new appointment activity, I can do that, and then I can create all these. It'll know that the type field is an appointment. I can fill in that information, and if I want that bigger window, that activity detail screen where you combine or create everything, I can do that, and it will take me there. Here, outcome notes. What happened on June 28th? Did they love everything you showed? Did they make comments they wanted more information on, let's say, the international stock of Danish from Norway, or whatever it might be? These are your outcome notes. This is where you can put the conversation you had with the person. Again, think of that 5-year rule down the road. Now, if you want this to go to other people in your office, other users of SmartOffice, they have to have a user account. Once you fill this all out, you can say, send this note as an alert. By the way, if you're wondering what the alert is, it's talking about this little bell up here in the upper corner of SmartOffice, and an email to any of the other users in the office. And that comes in very, very handy at time. So notice the other options though. Comprehensive. Oh, we have a standard ad. We have a comprehensive outcome. So we have a standard ad, a comprehensive ad, a standard outcome, and a comprehensive outcome. We're going to get into this. Then you can actually put it into an opportunity process. Again, I like to call them pipelines. I can take a look at the SmartPad and put in information if I need. If they gave you a referral from this June 28th, it'll allow you to immediately enter the referral into SmartOffice as well, or you can just cancel. Now, you've got all kinds of formatting here. If you're creating let's say a second appointment, again, we can check other participants' calendar while we're doing it to see if they're available for the next scheduled appointment, etc. And I mentioned this will open up that other screen. But let's jump to comprehensive. Now, I probably use standard more than anything because I do a lot of work with clients in the opportunity module, but this is really my favorite screen. It really is. I just love this screen. So first of all, at the top, it says, all right, what happened? Was the appointment completed or not completed? If I said not completed, I get a smaller list of options, but let's say it was completed. And let's say I was told to schedule a call for a follow-up. And we've also got the next appointment scheduled. I even got permission to keep in touch. I can also do things like a fact finder was completed, a case was opened or closed, closing interview, sale made. We rejected a prospect, they went inactive. We attempted to talk to them and get referrals. In fact, let's say they gave you a referral. Then down here, I can put all my notes. My notes. And really, you should try and be as in depth on these notes as you possibly can. Need I say it? Okay, one more time. The 5-year rule. For some of us, it could be the 5-minute rule. We might not remember what was said, but take the 5-year rule. And now watch what happens. So I have got, what, 5 items here selected. And SmartOffice says, I know you're not done. Go to the next button. And the next button says, well, one of the choices you made was that you obtained permission to keep in touch. Ha, you've got some options here. And you can create your own. And I've created my own before, but for the life of me, I can't remember, do they do exactly what I want them to do? So am I keeping in touch a week from today, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, 6 months, a specific date, their birthday, and or their review date? So if you have their birth date in your contact record, you choose that and it'll put it on your calendar on their birthday. The review date, if you've got the review date in there on the contact record and you choose that up, and it'll automatically create the task on that review date. So what the heck? So let's say 6 months from today. And then you can put in why. Is expecting to receive proceeds from a land sale. There. That's going to be, oh, we'll have to put it on a little subject line. Yeah. Follow up to June 28th. There. I've got a follow-up task. Now, Rochelle, I think you're on this call. You were going to be. I wonder if we can't use some of this, except you can't assign it. I'll have to think about that. I just had a call before this, and we were discussing things like this as it was. So SmartOffice is all right. Go ahead and click finish. And it goes, but wait a minute. You said that you had to schedule a follow-up call. So it takes you to the standard ad screen. You can go to comprehensive and let's do this. So let's say I want to follow up on child's first day of school. And active, and and that is we're supposed to, we just want to wish the kid luck. So we'll say on August 15th. Okay, so we'll save and close. SmartOffice says, wait a minute. Another option you did was to say that you scheduled an appointment. So I could fill this in and we'll just put in the data, we'll say data gathering from review on June 28th. And and let's say we're going to do that. We've scheduled that. Now we could go to comprehensive because it's there, but we're just going to do a little quick down and dirty, the 19th, 8 to 8:30. Okay, save and close. No, I don't need the confirmation letter. But then SmartOffice said, wait a minute, you selected that they gave you a referral. The bottom line is every option I chose on the comprehensive outcome, SmartOffice will automatically walk me over to that screen or screens and let me fill in the information. So I am technically marking this one appointment done and yet creating all these other pieces. So let's say that this was a contact and I can put this right in there and we'll call this Marcus, Twitter. And this will, again, I like to try and put in as much information as I can. And the source is a referral. And the birth date, let's say we don't have any of that information. I can come down here and let's say that this was a referral. And we'll say Miriam happened to mention Marcus. And I can fill in whatever other information I want. I can put in an initial activity, all of this that you get on a standard new data entry screen. I'll click Save and Close. Add more referrals. So if they gave you more, you can go right ahead and keep filling those in until you're done. And there, finally, but finally in a good way, everything is done on this particular appointment. And what I have here is my appointment. If I go in and I take a look at my SmartPad, everything is listed there as to what I have done, my outcomes, it was completed. There's my notes, my outcome, my notes, because it's pulling in the outcome notes that I typed. I could have done a better job on those. Sorry about that, but it's all there. And as I mentioned, if let's see, I think I can, no, do I want to go back into this? What am I going to do next? No, I think I'll leave it open for a minute. So I'm going to show you that it's on John's master SmartPad. I can go into Miriam and you'll see it on her activity log. I can go to John Atlaw, the attorney, and is going to be on his activity log as well. And they'll show those that they are done, whereas before they were active. So everything is done. And as boring or time consuming that sometimes we think a calendar is, not necessarily so. Now, I'm gonna let you in on a secret, and don't tell anybody I told you this. There's some changes coming with the way the calendars is going to look and react. I don't know when, I don't know how far they are. It might be quite a ways down the road, but know that we never stop looking for ways to improve. If there are certain things about calendaring, and I know many of you may use another calendar integration, and that's fine. We do too. But it can work with SmartOffice. And I'm just pulling one out of the hat because it's the only name I can remember. We have some sales reps, and I have a lot of agents that use a calendaring software called Calendly, because Calendly will sync with Outlook. Outlook syncs with SmartOffice. So where they can go in and schedule their own appointment or phone call with you, that works. But that doesn't mean that's all you can use it for. And let me give you, this is a really great example. I had an advisor that wanted to color code the subtypes in his calendar, which you can do. They're over in the preferences area. You can color code the types, you can color code the subtypes, and if you're having multiple participants, you can color code by them. So maybe mine would all be purple, yours would all be red, whatever, as far as just the border around it. But he really wanted to color code the subtypes, but his clients were using Calendly to schedule their calls and appointments. So he goes, can you figure out a way to do this? Well, then it dawned on us, Calendly doesn't have a subtype field. Outlook doesn't have a subtype field. The only one who has it is SmartOffice, and that's what they wanted color coded. So how did I solve this issue? Well, when they put it in Calendly, it syncs to Outlook. And when Outlook syncs to SmartOffice, I created a report, put it on the home page, assigned it to the staff person, and it looks for any task or activity that has been created whose subtype is empty, because Calendly doesn't have that field. Outlook doesn't have that field. We have that field, but there's not going to be anything in it because there was nothing pushed over. And once a day, because this is what her boss really likes to see, she takes and watches that dashboard. She goes in and she figures out what that call was for, what that appointment covered, and she fills in the subtypes, and they automatically disappear from the report. So just because some things on the surface don't look like they work real well, there is a connection. Now, I'm going to turn this over to Zoe in a minute or two in case there are any questions in the chat line. But I was talking with Dave and I was talking with Zoe, and they should know that I was going to bring this up anyhow. There is many areas of calendaring that you may not even know anything about. I got a couple of areas where you can put merge codes down here and pull data from certain fields in SmartOffice. Like if this phone call was about a policy, not on this traditional way of creating one, but there's another couple places where I could go in and bring in with a merge code so that when it actually creates the detail, the carrier name, the policy number, It doesn't do every field. I wish it did some of the custom fields, but a lot of the fields that are in there by default, it can pick that up and you can put that in here. Oh my gosh. It's amazing some of the ways we can use the calendaring in SmartOffice. And while people often think it's just too boring, I just use my Outlook or I just use my other, think about it. And on top of that, we are creating your paper trail for, here it comes, 5 years down the road.